The king may rule over land and sea. The Lord may live right royally. The soldier ride in pomp and pride. The sailor roam over ocean wide. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer must feed them all.
The writer thinks, the poet sings, the craftsman fashion wondrous things. The doctor heals, the lawyer pleads, the miner follows, the precious leads. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer must feed them all.
The merchants may buy and sell, the teachers do their duty well.
But men may toil through busy days, or men may stroll through pleasant ways.
From king to beggar, whatever befall,
The farmer must feed them all.
The farmer's trade is one of worth. He's partner with the sky and earth. He's partner with the sun and rain, and no one loses for his gain. And men may rise, or men may fall, but the farmer must feed them all.
God bless the man who sows the wheat, who finds us milk and fruit and meat. May his purse be heavy, his heart be light, his cattle and corn and all go right. God bless the seeds his hand let fall, but a farmer must feed us all.
Do people know where their food comes from? Sure they do.
When you ask a kid, where do you get your milk from? They're going to tell you the grocery store. When you ask kids, where do you get your jeans from? They're going to tell you the mall or from Walmart. And most kids, when you ask them, where does cotton come from? They'll tell you it comes from sheep.
Our instant gratification society might be part of the problem.
We get on the internet and we order anything that we want, and it is at our doorstep within 24 hours. And we're used to that, and we want that. And agriculture takes a while. You don't go out there and plant a seed today and you see it grow tomorrow. When you have a little baby chicken in your hands, you have that little baby chicken, and tomorrow you're not eating drumsticks.
It's the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the milk you drink. It's all due part to farmers and ranchers in our agricultural industry. The world has just gotten complacent in our food supply. It's so plentiful, and it's always there for us. No one's thought today that we could wake up tomorrow and not have food on the table. Unfortunately, for people to really get an appreciation of agriculture, they would have to go without.
We need to be training new trainers.
Fewer and fewer people in this country or in the world appreciate where their food comes from. And so we might train a lot of students that come through our department that end up becoming doctors, lawyers, things like that. And if we've done a good enough job of teaching them about animal agriculture, they end up becoming advocates for agriculture.
Today's cattle are tomorrow's food.
We produce cattle, but we are in the food business.
We're in a changing industry. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, and it's going to continue to change. As a producer, you've got to keep and use as good a bulls as you can on as good a set of cows as you can, and try to watch what the market is telling you to produce. There's so much difference in quality cattle. We've got strings of cattle that we buy, that when we buy them, people will tell you, I don't want them at any price. And you may think, well, surely they've got some value. Well, we bought those cattle several times. They don't perform, they feed terrible, they hang up terrible. We want them at no price. The way these cattle are merchandised through the case at the retail level or through restaurants, all the way back to the people that graze the cattle, there's still going to be lots of changes. You've got to try to make your business keep producing a better product, and if you don't, then what you've got to sell may not bring what you expect it to bring.
It's a challenge to produce food and fiber at commodity prices that have not kept up with input prices.
The only way the farmer has been surviving is being able to produce more. And it's through all this technology that has allowed him to do this. Less than 2% of the people out there are actually producing our food. There's such a disconnect. There's people that don't even have a live plant in their house, and they want to try to tell us how to produce our food. Is it just a group that's against everything, or is it a group that is funded to be against everything? My goal is to feed the world in a safe way, and we're going down the right road right now.
Zimbabwe, 20 years ago, called the breadbasket of Africa, is an example of what happens when the value of agriculture isn't recognized.
I grew up in Zimbabwe, Africa, and growing up there on an operation, and then watching what happens when the government actually eliminates the agricultural system by taking away all the farms. We were producing enough food that we could feed 5 countries. And within 3 years, we couldn't even feed a quarter of the population there. But now, in that part of Africa, people are starving. What that does is it puts pressure on everybody else too. I mean, the US actually had pressure put on them because they had to start sending aid. So they have to start sending food to a country now that's starving.
And this is why the Farm Bill is so important.
And so the fight was to try to make sure that people understood that you don't do a Farm Bill for the good times, you do it for the bad times.
The value of food is determined by how much food there is. Let's not go there.
But the real reason is that this is a food affordability bill, not just Farm Bill. It's a food affordability bill. But at the same time, it's a food availability bill, meaning that we've been very fortunate in this country not to go to the grocery store and have to find out that there's no food there.
Psychologists will tell you that you have to tell something over and over and over till you just get almost sick of saying it, and then you've got to say it 2 or 3 more times, and then you begin to break through to the consciousness of the audience you're trying to talk to.
So listen carefully.
We've got the safest, most wholesome beef supply in the world.
Okay, one more time.
We have, without a doubt, the safest, most abundant, most affordable food supply in this world.
This is the 1000th episode that we've done, and every one of them has been an effort to educate people on production agriculture and everything between the ground and the plate. And there is so much ignorance out there about agriculture once you get away from people in it. And they see food either on the plate or in a restaurant or in the grocery store. They don't see a calf walking out here, cute little baby calf, as being a future supplier of meat, and that's what they're for. They don't see that cornfield as they're driving past at 75 miles an hour. They don't see that as going into feed, going into cattle, and then producing more meat.
Abundance can lead to ignorance.
They start talking about doing away with genetically modified foods. They have to make at some point a conscious decision as to who they're going to have starved to death. We can't feed the whole world with nothing but organic. It's kind of like Dr. Borlaug said, if you have plenty of food as a nation, as a country, if you have plenty of food, you got all kinds of problems. If you don't have enough food, you only have one problem, and that's people eating.
We are the real environmentalists.
You people in town are environmental activists. We as farmers are active environmentalists.
Anybody in agriculture wants to be and has to be an environmentalist. Yeah, I joke about it every now and then, but you never hear of anybody worrying that cattle or chickens or hogs or things like that are going to go extinct. You're not going to find them on the endangered list. We're taking care of them.
We produce a lot of chickens.
Poultry is the #1 meat in terms of per capita consumption in the United States, which means, the more people that eat chicken, the more chicken we need to produce.
So through better genetics, better housing, better nutrition, better health management of the birds, they have everything that they need. They have a comfortable environment, they have a clean environment, they're off the ground so that they're not susceptible to bacteria and worms and other intestinal infections. They have everything that they could possibly ever need to be happy, healthy, and productive. I think the issue of cages and cage space gets back to people applying human feelings and human desires to the animal. And the animal doesn't perceive the world. The animal doesn't have the same needs that we do. And so us placing our personal feelings upon what we think is appropriate for the bird may not be the right way to approach it.
Beef. Now that's what I'm talking about.
32 million beef cows is where we were when the drought hit. So we've come right back to that, take more pounds of beef off every animal with the genetics and nutrition that we have. So The productivity has continued to increase over time. We're going to have the largest beef production in the history of our industry this year. 1975 was our peak in cattle inventory numbers at 132 million. We have 98 million head of cattle today compared to 132, and we'll produce 2 billion more pounds of beef today in 2018 than we did in 1975-76. So the productivity machine is alive and well.
The world wants our product, and we want them to have it.
The U.S. is the largest beef and poultry producer on the planet, the third largest pork producer on the planet. We export 17 billion pounds of protein on an annual basis. When we have trade disruptions, retaliations, tariff, all these kind of things going on out here, obviously that puts a lot of pressure on our markets.
Just how important are exports?
This year we're going to sell calves for about $1.65 a pound, basis of 550 pound steer calf. $65 a hundred of that total value will be generated out of the export market. $360 a head.
A great country is a country that can feed its own people.
Food security is national security. Healthy economies are national security. You can't have a healthy economy if you got hungry families. That's why it's so important to get ag policy right in this country. And all the things that help ag policy. If you think about ag policy writ large, that covers tax policy, it covers regulatory policy, it covers trade policy, it covers labor policy and immigration. Our farmers grow enough food not only for those of us here in the United States, we grow enough for other economies around the world, and one of the things we do with some of the production we have from agriculture is to use that for foreign aid.
First generation farmers, we need you.
It's just really hard breaking in when you have a lot of established producers in the area, and so many of them, you know, it gets handed down from generation to generation, and when you're not one of the lucky ones that does, you end up, for me, I took a lot of ground that nobody else was willing to work, that was grown up. You know, we cleared a lot of fence rows, grubbed a lot of trees, sprayed a lot of weeds, just sort of grew a little at a time, worked at a grain elevator. I've worked for another local farmer some, and all the meanwhile just picking up lease places, trying to farm. I used all the custom work to sort of help fund a lot of the loans and the equipment purchases and have some cash flow, as well as working for other people, you know, a full-time type job, just to be able to keep growing it and virtually put everything that was made back into the farm every year. And it's not the latest and greatest equipment I have, but it's paid for. So that's half the battle right there. My wife is a nurse, and she helps on her days off here on the farm. And people, you know, a lot of her patients will ask, you know, about her and what she does, and they're just intrigued the fact that they've met somebody that farms for a living, you know, and they just, they can't fathom that there's still somebody out there that does that, you know, and which that amazes me, because everybody I know makes a living off the land.
We're getting new neighbors.
I guess my biggest fear, barring weather, is the urban development, and it's just taking land, and I don't know where to go next. The land values have gotten so high, there's no way you can afford to buy land. You can't make the interest payments on it trying to farm it and run cattle and grow hay and that sort of thing.
The times of doing the right thing quietly and hoping somebody will notice are over. We've got to tell our story.
And so we just want to open up our doors to the people that actually consume the product, so they understand, you know, how we do what we do and the care we put into the products that we're producing.
If they knew that we're out there when it's 20 degrees and raining helping a cow have a baby calf, they might have a different perception. But they don't see that. We don't go around and tell our story.
What people don't see is when we have day-old poultry or turkeys in these houses, Christmas morning, we're out here walking them, making sure everything is right, making sure the temperatures are right. The storm comes in, I'm getting up in the middle of the night, coming out to make sure all the curtains are good, everything is the way it needs to be.
From the Ground Up is nearly 20 years old, having aired over 1,000 episodes. to attempt to educate by telling agriculture's story. We have learned so much along the way, and the changes we have seen tell us that we must keep learning. The challenge is to educate the many so that they will appreciate the few that produce our food and fiber. We have been asked if we think we are making a difference. I don't know. Where does making a difference start? On behalf of Producers Cooperative Association, thank you.
Was thinking about the word producer and Producers Co-op. You know, I'm not sure that there is a better or more honorable title in America than to be called a producer. I call myself a producer, call yourselves producers. It is something that is quite significant for a man or a woman through hard work, ingenuity, and sheer stubbornness to make something or make something better. That's the definition of a producer. And you should be proud of that, and this country is better off for that.
And as always, let us say amen.
God is great, God is good. Let us thank